Hello, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. So today we're going to be looking at how to add fractions with similar denominators. Okay, so without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so whenever you're dealing with adding fractions, you always have to make sure that they have the same denominator. Now, what does that mean? So let's take a look at an example. Let's say I have the fraction 1. All right, this is a little too big. Let's try to shrink that a bit. Let's say I have 1 over 2, or 1/2, or a half, plus 1 over 2. So here, the reason we can add the fractions, we can add these two fractions, I'm going to just use a different color to explain this, is because the numbers on the bottom, we call these the denominators. Denominators. The numbers on the bottom are the same. So if the numbers on the bottom are the same, then you can add both fractions. However, let's just get rid of this. Let's say I change this to, use a different color, use green. Say I did we had half, so 1 over 2, plus a third, so plus 1 over 3. So half, 1 over 2, plus 1 over 3. So to add these two fractions, you got to look at the denominators. These are the numbers on the bottom. Are they the same? No, they're not the same. So because they aren't the same, I can't add these two fractions. Okay? So in order to add both fractions, you got to make sure that the denominators, the numbers on the bottom, are the same. All right. So now that we've seen an example, let's try out some exercises. Okay. So here's exercise 1. Give it a shot. You can give you a minute to pause and stop the video, and you can give this a try. Okay, so now that you've had some time to pause the video, let's see how we solve this. So before we do any adding, before we add any of the fractions, let's look at the numbers on the bottom. Are they the same? Yes. So the rule is if the denominators, if the numbers on the bottom are the same, you can just keep that number the same in the final answer. So if it's 3 here, 3 here, final answer is going to have a 3 on the bottom. If it's 5, 5, then it would have a 5 here. Okay? All right. So long as they're the same, the final answer for the denominator is going to be the same. Then what we do is let's use different colors. We add the numerators, or we add the numbers on the top. So you do 1 plus 2. Okay, and these are called the numerators. Numerators. That's how we call it. This is what we call them. Okay, so after you've made sure that the denominators are the same and you put the same denominator, you add the numerators. Okay, so you do 1 plus 2. Well, we already know that. That's 3. Put a dashed line, and then you keep this number the same. You keep the denominator the same. Okay, and normally we would stop, but we have an issue here. I'll give you a minute. Maybe you can take a guess as to what the issue is. Okay, now that you've had a minute, the issue is we have what we call an improper fraction. We call it an improper fraction. Now, why is that? This happens whenever the number on top, or the numerator, so I'm going to use n for numerator and d for denominator, whenever the numerator is bigger than or equal to, or so greater than or equal to the denominator, the number on the bottom. Let me use a different color. Let me use a different color. Denominator. Whenever the numerator is greater than or equal to the denominator. I'm just going to use DE for denominator. Okay, so whenever the numerator is bigger than or equal to the denominator, then you have an improper fraction. And what we need to do to get to the final answer is we need to do something called simplification. We need to simplify. Simplification. Maybe you may have heard of this in your math class from your math teacher. Simplification, or we need to simplify. Now, how do we do that? One of the ways we do simplification is by dividing. We divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay. So, in this case, we divide 3 by 3. All right, so you can write it out another way like this. You can do 3 divided by, because that's what a fraction is. You're just dividing the numerator by the denominator. You do 3 by 3. And 3 divided by 3, you just remember your division tables or your multiplication tables, it's just 1. We call that a whole. So the reason we say you have an improper fraction whenever you have, the number on the top and the number on the bottom is the same, is because when you divide them, you get a whole. Okay? So, sorry, no, I take that back. The thing you have to remember is whenever you're simplifying, you just divide the numerator by the denominator. Okay? And usually, whenever you check your division tables, you get 3 divided by 3 is actually equal towards 1. Okay? All right. Okay. So that's how we do the first problem. Let's try a second problem. Okay, let's try a second problem. Okay, so here's our second problem. You can stop the video, you can pause the video and try it out for yourself. Just gonna use red. All right, now that you've had a minute to try it out, first question I would like to ask you, what's the first step that we do? Right, so we look at the denominators. We look at the numbers on the bottom. Are they the same? Yes. If they're the same, then we just keep it the same as the final answer, because if they are the same, it means I can add these two fractions. Okay. And then what do we do with the numerators? The numbers on top, we just add them normally. So we do 5 in this case, that's what we have here, plus 7. Okay? Okay. All right. Now what's the next step? You just add normally. So I'm going to use green here. Yeah, so you get 12 because 5 plus 7 is 12. And then what do you do for the bottom number, the denominator? You keep that the same. It's 6. Okay. Now, are we done here? I'll give you a minute to think about that. No. Why not? It's because we still have an improper fraction. Just going to write IMP for improper. So we have an improper fraction. Why? Because the numerator, in this case 12, is bigger than or equal to, this is why we learned your greater than or equal to, so we have 12 is greater than or equal to 6. So because it's greater than or equal to, we have an improper fraction. And so because we have an improper fraction, we need to simplify. So I'm just going to write SIMP for simplify. All right, so how do we simplify? We look back at our division tables. We just do 12 divided by 6. This is one of the methods. There are other methods like factorizing and looking for common factors, etc. But one of the methods for simplification is just, dividing the numerator by the denominator. You'll learn more about the other methods as you get older. All right, so we do 12 divided by 6. In that case, if you remember your division tables or you remember your multiplication tables, it's just 2. And that's it. That's the final answer. Sorry, that's not what I wanted. All right, so that is how you do this problem. Okay, so now we're going to go on to our final problem. All right, we're going to move on to our final. Okay, so here's our last question. Okay, here's our last question. So I'll give you all a minute to try it out. I'm going to use red to answer it. You have a minute? Okay, so you've probably noticed, okay, we have 100. We have 100 down here. Does that make a difference? No, you follow the same rule. So even if these denominators, even if they were a million, even if they were infinity, you still follow the same rule. It doesn't really matter. All right, if they're the same, then I can add both of these fractions. Okay, so you get 100 here, 100 here. What do we do here? We keep 100. keep it as 100. All right. And then what do we do to the numbers on top? We just add them. To the numerators, we just add them. We do 1 plus 2. Easy peasy, nothing wrong. Okay, so what's 1 plus 2? That's 3. And then for 100, we just keep it the same. Now I have a question. You can stop and pause the video to see if you can answer this question. Is this number, is 3 over 100, or 3/100ths, is that an improper fraction? Is that improper? I'll use IMP for improper. Is that an improper fraction? No. If you answered no, you're right. It's not. Why? Because here, the number on the top, the numerator, so 3 is the numerator. I'm going to write NUM for numerator. Numerator is, I'm going to use a different color. Let's try blue. Numerator is 3. But the denominator is, I'm just going to use red, 100. Right? So the denominator is actually bigger than the numerator. So we don't have an improper fraction. Whenever the denominator is bigger than the numerator, we have a proper fraction. We have a proper fraction. And so because we have a proper fraction, we don't need to simplify. We don't need to use any of our simplification methods. Okay? In our case, it's just obviously dividing the numerator by the denominator, but we don't have to do that here because we have a proper fraction. Okay, I hope you all enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe. Stay tuned for the next one. I'll see you all very soon. Thank you and goodbye.